The reciprocal nature of the universe.
The foundation for everything.
We tend to hold unconscious beliefs.
The living and breathing movement
for the reciprocal universe
of the creative process.
to turn back into the reciprocating godlike being.
The very foundation of the universe is wrapped in the principle of reciprocity.
Hey there. Welcome to Truth Be Told. I'm Reverend Dan. We are Soul Evolution Collaborative, and this is episode 101, a little something about reciprocity, which is, I realized today, I think it's a weird word. It's not a word that, people use a lot, and yet I think we use it a lot in this community. I think it's talked about a lot in New Thought communities, the idea of reciprocity, as in, the reciprocal nature of the universe, that we live in a universe that revolves around ebb and flow, an exchange of cycles, a give and a receive, and that there's actually so much to this idea. It's such a complex idea, and yet on the surface seems so simple, but there's a lot of depth. There's a whole lot of depth to this idea. And for me, I think the thing that often gets overlooked is it seems like, because we live in a reciprocal universe, that, well, I should be able to give. That means I'm going to get, right? Because that sounds great. I'm just going to give stuff so I get stuff. And yet maybe that's not quite how it works. So when we look a little deeper at the principle of our reciprocal nature, the universe's reciprocal nature, there is this whole entanglement. That's where I realize, that's how much I realize how connected we are to this allness, right? This idea that I can speak words out to the universe, right? I can have thoughts, I can hold beliefs, and that the universe accepts those thoughts and beliefs and words and actually acts upon them, and then creates an experience based on that. And then I become the receiver of that experience. And so we're so much not separate from all that there is. And I don't know, it's just one of those things where it's one of those aha moments and you realize it. And then later on you have a deeper aha moment and you realize it again, even though it's the same thing and it hasn't changed. So a little something about reciprocity. Let's sit back and enjoy this episode of Truth Be Told.
What do you call a tortilla chip that works out? A macho nacho. What does an angry pepper do? Gets hot up in your face.
Reciprocal nature of the universe, the simple chips and dip version. This is one of those terms that is so specific. Rarely, if ever, do you hear this phrase being used outside of New Thought communities, or maybe even within New Thought communities. The concept is fairly simple. It is a belief that the universe exists in cycles, that there is a constant ebb and flow throughout existence, a giving and a receiving. Since the understanding of God through New Thought and science of mind specifically is that God is not a separate being, then our relationship to God changes from the traditional Western view of the male God separate and above us to something much closer. God doesn't dole out punishment or judgments. The New Thought understanding of God is that we are what it is. God is so much closer to us that we actually are a part of it. We are the livingness, the experience of it. So, instead of waiting or hoping for the day that the traditional Judeo-Christian God determines we are worthy of some reward, the New Thought belief is that as a part of the whole, we can influence our experience by changing our thoughts, beliefs, attitudes, patterns, behaviors, in order to experience life to greater and greater degrees, and that we become part of the giving and receiving. So the long and short of it is, we desire to change our experience, and our experience changes. Yet, it is way too easy to lean into society's perception of God as something separate, above and beyond, that we tend to hold unconscious beliefs that actually support that idea. This can kind of distort our perception of the reciprocal universe if we strive to believe in oneness and a God that is not separate, but have the idea of a separate God reinforced all around us. It can be challenging to hold a clear understanding of this principle, and so it is easy for the reciprocal universe to turn back into the reciprocating God-like being, once again doling out rewards to the worthy. Very often this principle gets talked about in terms of money, and this is where we can often see the distortion occur in our thoughts. It goes something like this. And I have to be honest, I have been the one at the front of the room on Sunday mornings giving this hopefully encouraging speech to inspire congregants to give to their community. Your donation will manifest 10 times the amount that you give, etc., etc. That line, or something like it, gets said so often that it can easily just slip by without thinking too much about it, enforcing an unfortunate give-to-get mentality. And the downside to trying to utilize this reciprocal nature of the universe as some sort of mathematical formula is that it also reinforces this sort of possessiveness of our funds. This money is mine, and I am going to invest my money in the universal market and outline exactly how I expect it to pay out to me. That somehow we own the money we have. That we then somehow continue to own the money that we are giving, as if we are able to control exactly what happens to the money after we have supposedly given it away. Then, very often, we hold expectations of that money and of the universe, waiting for this 10 times payout. Well, it doesn't seem like so much of a gift anymore, does it? The entire nature of giving shifts in this scenario. That doesn't mean that this is what happens all the time. In fact, it is completely possible to give freely in a manner similar to this and not hold any expectations. Restrictive thoughts, beliefs, behavior, activities like giving with expectations can easily cut us off from the free-flowing reciprocal nature of the universe that we are inherently a part of. Universal abundance is expansive, while our reciprocal nature tends to get tied to finances. The truth is, there is so much more to it than that.
It is no secret when we look at our world that conflict, polarization, and a framework of discontent abounds.
What if that didn't have to be?
What if that didn't have to be?
What if that didn't have to be?
The truth is that underneath it all is our innate hardwiring for love, connection, and belonging.
In our ever-evolving experience, now is the time.
Now is the time.
Is the time to unlearn societal constructs of the past.
And relearn what it means to be human.
To be human.
What it means to be human and a part of the global community.
This can only be done together.
This can only be done together.
This can only be done together.
We are being called to pack away the us versus them mentality and instead embrace the profound power of we.
Join Soul Evolution Collaborative.
Join Soul Evolution Collaborative
for the O-Shift Healing the Divide Summit,
November 14th through 17th.
November 14th through the 17th.
This event, through powerful speakers, engaging workshops, and collective conversation, will explore the transformative effects of healing the divide.
Now is the time for change.
Now is the time for healing.
Now is the time for healing the divide. Reciprocal nature, interbeing, interconnected, symbiotic, give and take. Regardless of the language, the most important aspect is the understanding that this concept is the foundation for everything. Without this universal principle, on whatever level we discuss or understand it, we wouldn't exist. The reciprocal nature of the universe, that's the name we'll go for our purposes here, is the living and breathing movement of the creative process. We know that we are always creating. And when I say we, I mean all living things. We are always creating, whether intentionally or unintentionally. And this creation sets in motion all that we see. And yes, even those things we can't see. We are connected to one another through this very process. And the great Buddhist teacher Thich Nhat Hanh described this process, this connection, as interbeing. And I can't get the implication of that word out of my head. It cuts to the very core of what it means to be human. And it so vividly explains how we are so intertwined with one another. And to try to resist that reality would be catastrophic. As much as we may want to ignore this fact, it does not negate its truth. The very foundation of the universe is wrapped in the principle of reciprocity. This is more than an idea of give and take. It speaks to the power that I possess to create and the power that you possess to create. Our beliefs, our thoughts, our actions have power, and they're created in all that we see. And more importantly, that our creation does not occur in a vacuum, but instead it is intertwined with the creation of everything, life itself. To understand the truth of this at its most basic level is to realize our responsibility to all things. Now notice I didn't say for all things, but to all things. Understanding our interbeing creates an awareness that what I give to the universe impacts not only me, not only you, but all of us. Wow, when we can fully grasp this, not just in our brains, but our whole being, to understand the magnitude of our connection, of the flow of the universe, the very essence of life itself, that it's not static, but active and creating. We can begin to understand the power of creating a world where empathy, belonging, and connection are the norm, where decisions in my life support justice, peace, love, equality in the lives of everyone. Reciprocity does not say, I'm going to give so I can get. I'm going to take because there may not be enough. Or you get to have this, but only if you can prove your worth. But instead, the principle of reciprocity says, when we all bring what we have to the table, then everyone is fed.
I like that idea. When we all bring what we have, everybody gets some.
But there's more than enough, yeah.
Wow.
But isn't it interesting? I mean, I think, yes, that on like a material level, but just think about that on all levels. When we can bring all of ourselves to life, when we create opportunities for everyone to do that, then everyone benefits from that.
Right.
Right. You think about there are things out there that keep people down or keep people small or keep people, not enough, and how that impacts us too, because those gifts, those talents, those whatever those individuals have to offer, we all experience the abundance from that.
Yeah.
And so I think it serves us well to create an environment where we can do that.
Yeah. Yeah, it just makes me think of all the shifting that would need to happen. I know my mind just goes right there. Like, man, we would have to have a whole lot of awakening going on for, like, I mean, it's interesting because it's true no matter what. Like,
Right.
we already benefit from all of us, from everyone showing up, and we all also reap what we sow collectively. You know, like, it's not true because we don't recognize it, right? Like, we're all collectively reaping what was planted, and
Yeah.
you know
In
what
any
would
given moment.
yeah, right. And so, like, what would it look like to do all that consciously? Because, you know, I think about, I mean, it's almost like becomes like a giant recap of everything we've ever talked about. Like, reciprocity really is like the whole thing, like the whole package. You know, it's like, oh, we'd have to go back, like, we'd have to look back through everything we've ever talked about and said, yeah, like, we would all have to do all of this. We would all have to do all the personal work, the body imagery work, like, not how we look, but how we feel about how we look,
Right.
the relationship stuff, the community stuff, the ecology. I mean, just like all of it. We would have to go back to the beginning and, like, oh yeah, we'd all have to do that.
But
Maybe.
the reciprocal nature of the universe, or reciprocity, it's one of my favorite things to talk about because it 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 breaks it down into, it's all about relationship. Like,
Yeah,
everything is about relationship. And I mean, may not be like, partner type relationship, but a relationship to something, and it's all about that. It's all about understanding, like, my relationship to you and my relationship to this person, my relationship to my understanding, my relationship to my beliefs, my thoughts, my actions, my relationship to
yeah,
a larger community. It's all about relationship. And I think when we begin to understand that I'm not over here having to do my own thing, create my own thing, I'm not doing it in a vacuum that's separate from,
yeah.
for me, like, when I know that
Hmm.
I have to make a decision that may impact uh, a certain number of other people, let's say, then for me, I take a little bit more time to think about that decision, a little bit more
Yeah.
intentional, knowing the impact it may have. And isn't that like all of our, like, that's everything. That's our
Well,
whole,
yeah, that's what I'm
not in
thinking
a way,
of.
yeah,
Like,
not in a way
wouldn't we
that's
have to
like,
do that for everything?
right, not in a way that's like paralyzing,
Yeah, yeah,
but in a way that is like expansive, that when I can make decisions that support everyone, when I can move about the world in a way that opens the door for other people to do the same thing, when I can show up this way and invite others and create safe places for others to do the same,
yeah,
then it is enhancing that relationship. That is like the true nature of the reciprocal nature of the universe. It's that true kind of like opening the space, inviting,
yeah.
stepping into the space, opening the space, inviting, stepping into the space. It is kind of how that works.
Hmm.
And once you kind of get on that roll, we can begin to see the power that we do have to create, the world that we want to
Yeah,
live in.
yeah, yeah. It's really interesting because that idea of like, the restricting feeling versus the expansive feeling, right? And,
Yeah.
like, I don't know. I mean, I what's well, let me back up a step. So this idea of, like, the reciprocal nature of the universe, I have no idea why, but I had never heard of it, at least in any way that's stuck, until ministerial school. And I remember
Mm.
the exact class. I remember the teacher. I remember the moment. I remember where I was sitting, and he's talking about the reciprocal nature of the universe, and I'm going like, the what? And then goes into this whole thing about, like, even when we pray, like, the universe is in the receptive mode, and we
Mm.
are speaking, thinking, feeling that which we desire, and then, like, that the universe receives that, and then the universe, like, does, law does its thing. Like, law processes the sum total of our thoughts, beliefs, words, feelings, whatever about that, and then we become the receiver as that thing gets processed by law. Like, poof, here's the thing, and we get to like receive the thing. And then ideally receiving that thing puts us in such a place of gratitude that we then become the giver again, giving gratitude for the thing. And then the universe becomes the receiver again of that gratitude. And it's just like this cycle of like giving and receiving, giving and receiving. And man, has that stuck with me. Like, just like I can almost like replay the scene in my head, learning that. And it's been a couple years at this point, but having a couple years to really like deepen and deepen and deepen on that. Wow, is that so different than I don't know. I mean, reciprocity from my life 10 or 15 years ago would have been reciprocity. Oh, that's like, yeah, like I do a thing, and so you're supposed to do a thing back.
Yeah.
I did this for you. You owe me. I helped my friend move. Now he owes me a move later. Next time I'm going to move, I get to call him up and be like, hey, buddy, come on over. Like that was reciprocity. Reciprocity was like an equal give and take or whatever. Like there was definitely this, like, it was contractual.
Attachment.
Yeah, there was attachment. There was expectation. There was a whole thing about it. And so putting together, this week's video, it was like, oh, wow, you get to kind of revisit all of that and just even see. I don't think I realized before just how much like the traditional Judeo-Christian God idea plays into that. That idea of like, if you and then, like, oh yeah, that's old school reciprocity.
Yeah.
You do, you worship me, I will give you the rewards. You repent your sin, you will be rewarded. You whatever, right? And it's like, you do the wrong thing, you get punished. And that was my version of reciprocity, however many years ago. It's like, wow, that is such a different worldview than of like, I mean, it was that possessiveness, and like to not have that possessiveness and be like, oh yeah, just give because it feels good. Give because it's expensive. Give because what? That's so different.
Well, and the part that I think that you brought up a minute ago, the receptivity. I think without you can't have reciprocity without.
Then there's that.
Yeah. So it's interesting. I think receptivity goes like hand in hand, like partners with reciprocity, because I think there has to be this, when we do create and we do kind of, our thoughts and our beliefs and our actions, kind of shape this, into this law, into this universal kind of give and take. Well, yeah, the other side of it is then we have to continue to remain open and receptive to, I guess the filtered back experience,
Yeah.
And for me, it's interesting. I think that I'm real gun-ho on the front end, but on the back end of that, it sometimes can be hard because, when we, our thoughts and our beliefs, our actions, I mean, everything, that we are creating, sometimes for me, it can be hinted with or tinted with an attachment. Like, I'm gonna put this out here and I want it to be just like this. And I'm not going to look for anything unless it's just like this. And so, but what happens is we do have to, when we have less of an attachment of what we're going to get back from what we're giving, then we can be open to all the things.
Yeah.
Because, it becomes like we don't have blinders on, that we just see the thing how we want it to be and miss how like all these other things that may be coming into our experience. So I think receptivity is a really important piece of this. I think receptivity keeps the reciprocity going, doesn't it? I mean, without that, it just kind of blocks the flow, because if you're not receptive to the flow, to the ebb and flow, to the in breath and the out breath,
Well, it's interesting. It makes me realize, like, I wasn't, and I say this for myself, this may very well be true for a whole lot of other people. I wasn't taught to receive.
Oh yeah.
Right? Like
Yeah,
like So what I'm realizing even deeper here is like, so the law of reciprocity, or reciprocity as a principle, is different than the expectation of, if I give, I should receive. The law of reciprocity, it's a whole mind shift, because it's like, it's not a if and then, it's a way of being. It is our nature. Like, it is in our nature to be. So it's this whole mind shift from, our way of being is to obtain and get and keep, versus our way of being is to be part of the the giving and receiving, and the ebb and the flow and the cycles of the whole thing. Like breathing, we would never, this is my air and I'm never letting go, right? Like, we're
How long you could hold that?
Yeah, right. Like, we would never, I mean, thank God, like, we have mechanisms that wouldn't really let us do that.
Right.
But isn't that the same thing? Like, our body is part of ebb and flow and cycle. And so it is our nature to be of that flow. And so anytime we're restricting the flow of our experience, the flow of our life, the flow of something through our life. But I think that's the way a lot of us are raised. Aren't we raised in a society that is restrictive, and this is yours and keep it, and obtain things and get more and more. And so it's a whole kind of worldview shift that happens to even like creep into reciprocal nature. Because then it's like, oh yeah, this really isn't mine. It's the, I don't know, this breath isn't mine. It's just the breath, right? Like, this cash flow is not mine. It's just the
flow,
the cash flow. Yeah. I mean, that's a whole other thing. And then I think then learning to receive, like, that's a whole, I don't know. I guess I've always focused on like, oh, I need to learn to give better. I don't know, give more, to give more in the flow of, and well, but also maybe it's a whole lot more about the receiving.
Well, isn't that what, when you think about these concepts of community and belonging and connection, just to be like, if you're in a relationship with someone and you're give, and never like open to receive, it's not a relationship. It's like this. Yeah. And so I think when we look at these principles or these concepts of belonging and connection and community, those things that we know that we're hardwired for, you have to be able to also receive. And so sometimes we're kind of in that, when we're resistant to that, either resistant to the give or resistant to the receiving, then we do cut off that the cycle. And so it just becomes this kind of like one-sided, going nowhere sort of thing. And so I think that, and then what happens is that, we slide into rugged individualism, we slide into us and them mentality, we slide into division, we slide into, everything that we see in the world now. In some various forms, I do think that there's amazing work that people who are partnering alongside of us that are recognizing the importance of community, and how community actually, in essence, is the outpicturing of this reciprocal nature. It's like this perfect little blueprint. You think it was like something planned, but isn't it? Like community, that true connection and belonging is like, literally, it's like the exact same blueprint as this reciprocal nature of the universe. That's literally imprinted in all of those things. And sometimes it's hard to know it, but you can feel it when you're in that space of belonging or connection or community, or in that kind of that flow. I mean, you can feel it, and it feels really easy and expansive and energy giving, because it is completing the cycle.
Yeah.
But when we don't complete the cycle, then you're right. It's like holding your breath, and it's not energizing. It's detrimental. It is life-changing.
Yeah.
It's catastrophic, and so, it literally is in everything. It really is what is the foundation of everything that we see.
Yeah. It's interesting, because I feel like I'm coming back full circle on my own thoughts tonight, because I started by saying like, oh yeah, like wouldn't we all have to do all of those things to have the realization to make possible a world where we're all in that reciprocal nature, and at the same time, it's like we just need enough to reach that critical mass. Like if we can reach, and maybe we already have, like we may have already, right? I mean, we may have already reached critical mass.
A herd mentality.
Yeah, seriously, right?
Yeah.
And like, so I think we see it show up in strange places, right? So like TikTok, you know, a couple years ago.
Speaking of strange places.
Yeah, TikTok, period. I understand. You know, a couple years ago, like you couldn't, you don't share someone else's art, someone else's creativity, someone else's whatever. Like I created this, it's mine, it's on my page, it's got my brand. Somebody shares the post, they're sharing my post with my video and my creativity. And like as a musician, I get that.
Right.
I get that. Like you deserve, right? So come along TikTok, and like the whole thing, the whole premise is playing off of someone else's creation. And so there are all of these original videos that are my video spliced with your video, or a clip of your video and then my video, or my video literally playing into your video, and then someone else takes that video and adds to it, and someone else takes that, and so you have like these chains of videos. And the copyright, I mean, it's like part of the deal that you're like, yeah, I'm creating to share, right? And like, what a young mentality that is. I don't know how else to say that, right? Like, you know, and so,
but is it? I don't know that it is. I think that is the blueprint of our nature. I think that it's gotten covered over, and maybe it's being uncovered. You know.
Well, yeah. And I mean, young as in like.
I know. I'm just teasing you.
You know, fresh and rejuvenative, and right, because like so now YouTube. They came out with YouTube Shorts, and they literally had to go and change their copyright policies, because otherwise you wouldn't be able to share this stuff. Everything would get copyright infringement on, right? So it's like it's a whole other world, right? And you have I remember I was
maybe someone will stitch this video,
right? Yeah. You know, and I mean, I remember doing some adjunct music stuff one time in this one school, and this kid came in and he was telling us about how he spent the weekend like recording beats. And so as music teachers, we were talking to him like, oh, that sounds cool. What were you doing? And basically what he was telling us was how he went and stole excerpts from different songs and remixed them into all of these quote beats. And we're like, oh, that's stealing. Did you record them yourself? He's like, no, I went in and edited them out. You edited those clips out of some other music. And at the time, I mean, this was maybe 10 years ago, we're like, that's stealing. That's illegal. That's like copyright infringement. You can't do that. And yet here we are, like, that's the way, like that's how all these people make music now. Like literally go and sample somebody else's track and that's your tune. It's like, wow, I'll have to work on that one.
Yeah, but I think we are seeing it. I think we are seeing shifts. We are seeing people bringing their gifts to the table and collaborating with other people that are bringing their gifts, and then taking all of those things and then in a movement towards something, whether it's social justice, whether it's grassroots things, whether it's spiritual communities and creating new things on that front. But we're seeing it, and I think that just really kind of catching that wave of that, because I think we're seeing it and it feels great because that's our true nature, that we are in the actual flow of how we are supposed to be.
In case you had any doubt.
Because it feels different. You can tell it feels expansive when you're collaborating and with bringing your gifts and collaborating with other people and their gifts. It feels expansive because that's how it works.
And even just like walking around in that space, like even if you're the only one, like if you can muster up the courage and the energy to do it, even if it's for like 5 or 10 minutes, like to be the only one at work, Like, yeah, that's changing the whole atmosphere. Somebody will notice that, if you do that 5 minutes a day for, I don't know how long it would take, but somebody would notice. And then there's two of you.
I mean, it's changing the world. It's it's changing the universe.
Yeah. And maybe it's not work, maybe it's home, maybe it's whatever, right? But like, yeah, it is. It is.
Reciprocity where it's at.
Right. That's right. It's good stuff. It's good stuff. So this is the last in the series on Nacho Mama's prosperity. And I don't know about you, but I have learned a whole lot about me and about prosperity and abundance and my personal desire to be much more expansive than I have been in the past. So hopefully this has been helpful to you. If you are watching on YouTube, feel free to, as they say on YouTube, slap the like button, hit subscribe, whatever. It's always helpful. Drop a comment, let us know how you're doing and how this is helping. So thanks for tuning in. One quick thing, we said it in the middle here with our little promo, but upcoming in just a couple weeks, middle of November, is the second annual virtual O-Shift Summit. So this year it is O-Shift Healing the Divide, November 14th through 17th, plus the special launch event for socially engaged conversations on the 18th. So check those out. Information available at soulevolutioncollaborative.org. It is going to be amazing. We will be there and having just as much fun, if not more, than last year. So hope to see you then. Thanks for tuning in. If we see you Thursday at the gathering, we'll see you then. If not, we'll see you next week.